Hello everyone, this is Heroes Trivia. Welcome back to our subscriber game tournament season 2, as I'm here to explain the rules of round 2. As after 9 days of contest, we have 18 competitors left, moving on to round 2, which will be a siege battle round. As you can see here, it's a walled siege battle taking place in Kuwaiti, down in the south. I picked this map because it's quite interesting for both the attacking and defending side. The settings will be the same as shown here. As the 9 days that follows, we'll have each of the groups play a best of 2. So typically with best of 2, if you're tied, you need a third tiebreaker match. For our tournament here, we're not going to be doing that. Instead, if you win both of your matchup as you alternate between defending and attacking side for the siege, you will advance directly into the top 8. If you tie with your opponent, then you move on to round 3, where you will play a time trial battle with me to determine the slots of the top 8, depending on how many slots are open after seeing all 9 groups play. That means if all 9 groups go 2-0, which hopefully will not happen, we will have to resort to some other method of breaking the ties or perhaps adding additional round, because it's very hard to proceed with 9 players in a tournament while making it fair and not playing too many extra matches. Hopefully, we'll have a good mix of 2-0s and 1-1s. That way, those who go 2-0 will advance, those who go 0-2 will be eliminated right away from the tournament, and those who tie will play me to earn the remaining spots in the top 8. And looking at this match here, as we don't need to look that far into the future, it's designed to favor the defenders for most of the siege battle in the game. Although there are things that handicap them. For example, the defending side has only 1,200,000 fund versus the 15,000 for the attacking side on ultra funding. Now, this is not a big issue because defense have all the towers, they have the wall, they have the narrow streets on the inside, and all they really have to do is hold the center. But this also makes the defenders quite predictable, and the attackers can get creative with how they approach this fight. I think they can overcome the defensive advantage built in by the game and win these matchups. So we're going to hop into the map and take a look at exactly what our players will be facing in round 2. Now the settings for the exact map are here. I purposely picked high density and high development to encourage fire attack. It's also a dry night in the summer, which makes it perfect to burn. And if a settlement takes damage, the defending side will lose morale as punishment for settlement damage up to 20 points. And perhaps that is the strategy some of our contestants will take. But let's first take a look at the map and why I decided to go with Kuwaiti. It's a very weirdly shaped settlement. There's a lot of protruding sides as well as a very interesting town center surrounded by a moat, which actually makes it a bit weaker and more exposed, as I will explain once we hop into game. We'll be taking the perspective of the defender here. There is a lot of towers, and there are a lot of bastions where we can place siege weapons. Now, because we didn't pick a full army, I don't think we actually get the 2 siege weapons. It's 1 trebuchet and 1 multi-bolt crossbow that will be provided for you. You can place them on any of the bastions attached. Note, on this side, there are no bastions. So if the attacker decides to attack from this side, then you're just going to have to rely on towers and your wall. Once inside, the only interior tower on this map are the ones defending the bridge. There are 4. This is a death trap. I think attacking side must destroy these towers before attempting to cross the bridge, or else the towers will simply shred whatever is trying to make this crossing. This is the victory point, and most defenders will probably have to place some, if not all, their unit here, as defending this entire wall is rather difficult. Now the cool thing about siege battles is that the deployment phase is visible to both sides. So as the defensive side, you should always wait until the offense have placed their unit and hit start. That way you have the 60 seconds to respawn and place your unit properly. Of course, you can give up the outer wall and just defend the center. That is a viable choice. But the beauty of this map is that this choice can be punished. For example, if you bring any sort of trebuchet or long-range siege weapons, you could actually get into a position over here where you can rain fire down at this square. You cannot deploy on the backside. This is a palace building that is occupying this area. You can't put troops there. So technically the area is only this big. It's not a very big area, and if you compress all your troops here, they're very vulnerable to siege weapon attack from this side. That is one option, but probably not the best option. I still think getting inside is the best option. You can shoot them from over here, you have a range advantage. It's very hard for them to actually come out to get to you. As well as this side. The moat will work for and against you, depending on how you defend. Aside from that, the forest covers all the way to the wall, and it's pretty dense. So there is a viable strategy for the attacker to approach the city from the trees and stay invisible and either climb across or bust through the wall, depending on if you want to use your siege weapons. These will be available for all attacking side for free. It's by default. They will get one battering ram and one siege tower, and they can see fit how to use it, because climbing walls with units will fatigue them for the rest of the match, and that is a huge stat debuff that you don't really want. But assuming you approach the city from multiple angles and give them multiple threats, I think the defender can't afford to spread out their thin forces because of the lack of funding to defend every possible approach. So in theory, I believe the outer wall can be taken by the attacker without much effort, as you pretty much have to force the defender to compress to this victory point, which is where things get interesting. Now, of course, I envision some players on the defensive side will defend quite aggressively and try to meet them in the field outside if the attacking player divide their army up too much, or if they commit too heavily to one spot, which will be interesting to see, as there are a lot of terrain advantages. High ground, for example, on this side, the forest on that side, and the no bastion on this open plain, and access to the center. And I think the best way to approach this is to give some threats off to the side that are mobile and fast. For example, if you have a strong general, whether it's Lü Bu or Yan Baihu, for example, who is going to have stock, and if they don't have any foresight, you could climb through the city, start taking gates, and just run around invisible while inside. Having stock is quite powerful in a big siege battle, because at that point, they have to worry about losing the victory point, they have to worry about chasing you down the city, which is very hard to do, while your other units can gain access to one of these captured gates and just march in for free. That's one approach. And if you worry about the enemy chasing you, you can just keep your general somewhere around the town, kite them onto the wall, and if the enemy actually try to chase you, you can just get back out into the forest and disappear. And I imagine most defenders wouldn't dare to venture some of their troops out without seeing what's in the forest. In essence, I think with patience, it's easy to capture the outer layer of the defense. Rushing it would be disastrous because these towers will hurt. They overlap quite a bit. The interesting shape of the city, not being a square, create a lot of overlapping points for these outer towers, and any sort of careless approach will be punished. But for those who plan out ahead, I think it will make a quite interesting attack route that will pressure the defense quite a bit. And the fact that this is a bridge is also quite interesting, because siege weapons such as juggernauts can become very effective at a compressed defense that's guarding the plaza. You would just need to have the right generals to dissuade enemies from approaching you. Things like ceasefire with Liu Zhang is going to be very good at protecting that siege weapon, as it's going to be very hard for enemies to venture out only to get frozen in space in front of a juggernaut that will blow fire on you. Doesn't matter if you're a general or a unit, you're going to die in that situation. So that's also going to be interesting to see. The weapon used against towers could be just simple fire arrows, as we are playing on a dry summer night. So everything will burn rather quickly. And this is the settlement damage that we're talking about. At full destruction, I believe you lose a good chunk of your morale, melee attack, and melee defense, which in this game would be sort of hidden stats, has to do with the evasion rate, but essentially it will weaken your army's melee capabilities. And we'll see how that one plays out, if any player will try to light the whole town on fire, which can be done without fire arrows if you don't want to use range units. Any unit with Raider can just light buildings up by standing next to it. So Qingzhou unit, Yellow Turban unit, any Xiongnu unit, just have them come in and start torching up the place. The fact that we have high density and high development just means there's enough building next to another building to spread the fire very, very easily. And we'll see how this matchup goes. I expect a lot of interesting attempts. Hopefully people get creative, and we'll see a lot of interesting battle on this map. So that's going to be round 2, and we can see the results, and then we'll move on to round 3, where the players that tie actually get to play me for a chance to enter the top 8. And for those who 2-0 and missed out the chance to play against me, we'll be doing some fun thematic battles that will also be coming to the channel, not as part of the tournament result, but just for a grand thematic showing with different themed armies, which people have been very fond of. And that's kind of the wrap for what to expect in round 2. And the schedule for the round 2 matchups will follow the same order as it was in round 1, with group 1 through 9. So looking forward to seeing these matches starting tomorrow, and I'll see you all then. Bye!